Hello there, people of the internet. How's everybody doing today? I'm doing alright, thanks for asking. I was over here listening to Kevin scream in the background. I was talking with a buddy of mine the other day, talking about getting myself another black powder revolver, and probably another 44 caliber, just because I have so much 44 caliber ammunition. But I've only got one that is actually legitimately functional the way that it is supposed to be functional, so I'm likely going to get another one. But I was talking with this buddy, and we were going over things and talking about pros and cons, and if I'm going to get this, I may as well just get that, and just, you guys know how that song and dance goes. But whenever I was talking with this buddy, I brought up that conversation I had with that buddy with another person. This person was a young man, and they were very interested in old school firearms. Like, not old school milsurp stuff, but like old school cap and ball, black powder firearms. And the reason why he's so interested in those is because since they don't take a brass case, you can load them basically indefinitely. And that is a young man that is going to go places. But having something like this right here is a cap and ball muzzle loader made by Jakar or something like that, clearly reminiscent of a plains rifle chambered in 45 cal. I know the front side is on backwards. People are going to yell at me for that. Well, that's because I'm blind, and having the front sight with this large surface area right there and bright shiny brass, it reflects in the sunlight so I can see it nice and easy. But this right here is very reminiscent of what people would be using during the earlier time periods before cartridges were really a mainstream thing. It could be percussion cap system if that's your go-to. There's flintlock systems, wheel lock systems, matchlock systems, whatever sort of system it is that you want to be able to ignite your gunpowder to send it down range. The primary aspect of thinking here is that there is no cartridge. It is just powder inside of the barrel that sends a projectile flying downrange. And I think that is a really, really cool concept. But whenever I was talking to this young man, he was like, I really like muzzle loaders, but I am confused as to why revolvers existed, like revolver technology has existed since, I think that Colt's mainstream Patterson device was the 1830s or something like that, and they really became mainstream whenever Colt made his Dragoon models. I think that's the first model that Colt had made. But anyway, the actual history lesson behind the revolvers, I'm probably going to make another video on that. As a matter of fact, I might get myself a bunch of different black powder revolver models and go through the years and whatnot. I'm pretty sure it went Dragoon, and then we had the 1851. Remington came out with the 1858. Then we had some in-between stuff in there, but the mainstream ones, 1851. Remington had the 1858. Colt made the 1860. And then eventually they had other patterns like 1861, but it was essentially the same thing as the 1860. Eventually they came out with the 1872, which was a transitional revolver going from black powder to transition towards cartridge firing guns like the 1873 single action. But I'm like I said, I'm probably going to make a much more in-depth history video on particularly that situation. But whenever these black powder revolvers were, very mainstream and very existent, the technology was definitely there. This young man, he was confused as to why revolvers existed, which held 6+ shots of ammunition, but people were still using rifles that only held 1 shot of ammunition. He's like, why don't they make revolver-style rifles? It's a rifle that has a revolver cylinder in it, so you have multiple shots. And I'm like, oh boy, guess what? They did. That's definitely something that existed. But there were some problems with that system, and if you enjoyed having both of your hands, there were definitely some problems with that system. So the issue with loading black powder firearms that do not take cartridges is that you load the ball on top of powder, and the only thing separating that powder from the outside world is the ball and the actual chamber itself. Well, if the ball is not in exact specification, then you can risk getting chain fires with your revolver system. And if you have chain fires, take note on how the cylinders on this revolver are pointed in that direction. If you have chain fires go off let's say, for example, I don't actually have a revolving rifle. Let's say this right here had a revolver system right here. If you go bang and you have chain fires go off on the cylinder, which is behind your hand, which is right here, guess what? You're probably going to lose that hand because it's going to be hit by 2 or 3 rounds of ammunition at point blank range from your revolving cylinder. And that is not something that you want. So that is probably the biggest issue, because chain fires were absolutely an issue with these black powder revolvers. Anytime you're shooting a black powder revolver, you want to make sure that your hand is nowhere even close to that cylinder. Not only with a regular firing that don't involve chain fires, not only do you get a lot of hot gas that comes out from the cylinder gap right there, but if you have a chain fire, you now have hot gas and a, lead projectile traveling that way at 1,200 feet per second. You don't want your hand in front of that. That's one of the main reasons why these revolving rifles were not as mainstream as they could have been. Now, there's some arguments that maybe if you had your revolving rifle and you held it in a way that did not cause issues with chain fire, to where if you have chain fire, then your hand's not in the way. Yeah, you could do that, I suppose, but you diminish accuracy, and that's the whole point of, having a rifle instead of a revolver. I mean, there is the point of power as well, but you can have some pretty gosh darn powerful revolvers that will do the same thing that the rifle does. The main idea with a revolving rifle is that you get the accuracy of a rifle, but the capacity of a revolver. And in order to obtain that accuracy, you need your 3 points of contact, and one of those points of contact is going to be out here holding the rifle steady so you can get good, accurate aim points. You also have the buttstock that you would have against your shoulder, and I'm sure that there were revolver systems out there that were designed to have the revolver with a buttstock on it. As a matter of fact, I'm half remembering seeing that with a buttstock on it, to where you can kind of fasten that against your shoulder to have another point of contact to try and get a little bit more accuracy without the issue of having your hand in front of the cylinder and risking getting it blown off by chain fires. I am certain that those things did exist. As a matter of fact, like I said, I half remember seeing things like that existing. It's been a long time. I'll have to do more research on it. But for the most part, your revolvers with stocks on them were not revolving rifles. So you have the risk of chain fire, but at the same time, like I had said, just from regular shooting, you also have hot gases coming out of this cylinder right here. So if you have your arm out like this and you're holding your rifle, the hot gases every time you fire are going to singe your arm. So you have to wear long sleeves or some sort of protective garment or something like that just to be able to use your firearms. Not only that, but simplicity as well. With nice long muzzle loaders like this, this is a very, very simple system. Far less complex than your muzzle loading revolver, your cap and ball revolver. It's a dramatically more simple system. I have something crawling on me. I need that to stop doing that. But as a result of the system being simpler, it was cheaper to manufacture, although there is a lot more material that goes into something like this. The amount of effort that went into making something like this would lead to a cheaper design, simply because it's a far more simple design. And this right here is a example of a one that takes a lot of material. There are far more simplistic muzzle loaders out there that would lend themselves to be even easier to manufacture than something like this right here, versus a revolver, which takes quite a bit of machine time and whatnot to be able to get it to be reliable and accurate and timed proper. And then you got to mass produce those things and sell them on the market. It's just simpler and easier and cheaper for people to buy single shots. So I think those are probably the biggest reasons why revolving rifles never became mainstream. Of course, during the time period where these really started getting popular, from the 1850s to, well, the 1873, where the single action army came to be, during that time period, lever action rifles, repeating rifles, were also starting to become more mainstream. I know in 1860, the Henry lever action really became well, it came into existence and really became popular very, very quickly because people began to see just how effective of a system that repeating firearm was. It was a tube-fed magazine as opposed to a revolving cylinder, and so as a result, you didn't have issues with the chain firing blowing your hand off. So that was definitely a perk whenever we compare a lever action system to a revolving cylinder system. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and send a couple of rounds down at my steel silhouette down there. This is just 44 cal round ball ammo behind 25 grains of black powder. Not the most powerful of systems, and probably not going to be the most accurate either. But hey, I've already shot this thing today, so I have to clean it, and it's already loaded, so I've got to shoot it. And I'm going to miss that first shot and get the cap stuck and then completely miss that one cylinder while I try and de-stuck that cap, so I'll have to go back to that one. Alright, let's see if this one fires. Yep, that one fired. I have no idea if we actually hit our steel though. I missed another cylinder. These caps are just getting stuck because of the actual nipples on this revolver are not quite to the size that they're supposed to be at. So as a result, the caps are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they're just getting stuck inside of the system of this revolver. But I could still send some lead downrange. Literally, this is just round lead ball. There we go. I hit it that time, and I have another cap stuck. Looks like I have another 2 shots here. There we go. I forgot that these things here shoot a little high. So that's just notorious for this particular type of system. Whenever you have the rear sight on the hammer, just for whatever reason, these revolvers tend to hit a little bit high in comparison to ones that have the sights directly on the barrel or on the frame. So I'm aiming at the bottom of the target now. There we go. We hit it that time. Alright, so yeah, these hit about a foot high. I'll have to remember that for the next time that I run out with this thing. Definitely going to have to swap out those percussion cap nipples because they are not what they're supposed to be. And as a result, oftentimes the caps don't seat quite the way that they're supposed to be. So the first hammer strike, yeah, that tends to set them off, but sometimes first hammer strike just kind of pushes them into place where they're supposed to be, to where we get the appropriate anvil effect to where the second hammer strike actually strikes them the way that they're supposed to be stricken and detonates them and fires the cartridge, or fires the round. There are no cartridges with this. Thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share, description below, link to all sorts of stuff. Go ahead and go check that out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. This was a fun little video I thought I'd make for anyone else who was curious out there as to why revolving rifles were not more mainstream than they were. I'll see you all on the next episode. Since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. Shame that bolt action shotguns aren't more mainstream.